Greetings and welcome to the 6th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense anime podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Twitter to find the latest information about Nerdom and Other Nonsense. Today we're closing out the winter 2017 season and we'll be giving our final thoughts and scores for each series we finished. My name is Leo and I've literally been jealous of Bcom for a full year for going to Japan without me, and it's time for me to get over it now. Also, tonight with me, I have Bcom.
Wow, Leo, I'm so impressed that you finally reached down deep and found it in your heart to move past that. By the way, I just got back from Japan. It was friggin' awesome.
Yeah, I'll never be past it. Sorry to say.
I can't wait for you to finally go there, though. That'll be exciting.
Oh, yeah, I really want to.
Then you can tease me, because I won't be back there for a long time. So.
Yeah, I can tell you about the cool new stuff that's there now.
Exactly.
You guys did do a good job, so they'll try to do another trip, right?
I think so. Yeah, you should be able to make it on the next one, I'm sure.
It sounds like you guys did went pretty, like, no big problems or anything like that. Not that I saw.
No one died, and that's the important thing.
Did anybody come close?
Yes, there were a couple of like flirtations there. Well, there were some pretty rough nights involving a lot of like harsh Japanese whiskey, but we made it through. It's okay. All right. This episode we're going to be reviewing the final episodes of winter 2017 shows. So obviously there will be massive spoilers. There's always massive spoilers. Just get used to it. That's what this podcast is about. Oh yeah.
Also, at the end we are going to compare scores on the shows that we finished and rate our favorites of the season. Also, we will be going to weekly recordings for the spring 2017 anime season. So if you wanted to hear more of us every single week, there you go.
And if you wanted to hear less of us, oh well.
Well, the episodes might be they should be shorter.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be a little bit shorter since we're going to go weekly. But there are a lot of shows it seems to cover in spring. But we'll get to that.
Spring is super packed, so it may be rough.
Yep. But forget about spring. We still got to finish off winter. We got a couple of last episodes to go through, so let's get started. So, Sundays, we have that legendary show, Nyanko Days. And we've got...
Legendary in what sense?
Legendary in how great it started off and then how mediocre it became.
Okay.
So we got episodes 11 and 12, basically finishing off with like the girls and the cat girls going to like a festival. So they go to like this local festival because Ma gets really excited about it. That's the cat with the orange hair and the cute shirts. So Yu brings all of her cats with her, and her friend Izumi brings Elsa, her cat, with her. So it's like the show finally realized that maybe we should make this about the cat girls. Like, let's put them all in one episode together. What a great idea. Oh
Genius.
My God. Genius, yes.
That guy deserves a raise who thought of that.
And there's not much to the episode. Like, Elsa and Ma get into a little cat fight, and like they're battling it out to see who can catch more goldfish at this festival. But like as they're doing this, everyone else walked away, like looking at other stuff, and so they get lost. And so after the credits, like the girls notice that the cats are missing, but can't remember how to retrace their steps to where they were. So it continues on in episode 12 from there. So the two cat girls are lost. Elsa is like basically ready to give up, because like she's in terrible shape because she always rides on Izumi's shoulder or in her bag, so she can't even walk like a long distance. But basically they decide to they need to do something to get the girls' attention. So like Ma jumps up on stage and
it was cute
and starts acting like really cute and draws like a huge crowd, including like you and everybody else. Not much else happens. Like the final text of the episode was interesting though, because it said, "See you again." Which, does that mean that there might be more Nyanko Days in the future?
Who knows?
We may never know.
It may be the end of it.
We literally may never know. So that's it. We're going to be doing series scores at the end of this podcast. So I think we'll just move on for now. But like, it was just typical Nyanko Days. At least they had the cat girls in the last two episodes. They figured that out at least. So. But let's move on.
It's whether or not they stick to it.
Oh, yeah. Let's move on to Little Witch Academia, which we're finishing up like the first half of the season because this is a 25-episode show. But we're going to finish up through episode 12. So, episode 11, Akko's like working really hard. She's apparently like getting slightly better at magic, like with every episode now.
It's nice to see her actually working towards being better.
Yeah, and Ursula is like helping her after school or every day, like with new lessons. And she's like trying to repair this statue by levitating the parts and using restoration magic. And it's like her 101st try, and she almost gets it right. Like she still gets it wrong, but like she's getting closer. But basically, like this episode starts to get into the lore of this show and the lore of Shiny Chariot a little bit.
I'm so happy it's doing that too.
Yeah, because
it's in my notes.
Like a part of me is like frustrated because I really just want Ursula to reveal to Akko that she's Shiny Chariot, but I guess you can't really do that because it's such a big part of the show now that like Akko doesn't know, but that like Ursula is kind of like guiding her. But
yeah, and that's a whole nother story of why she's pretending to be Ursula now, I guess.
Yeah, so
maybe they'll get on that some other time. But this episode is also, we were pretty sure who Ursula was, Chariot.
Oh yeah.
But the show hadn't actually said it yet. I mean, for all we know, she could have been like her big sister or little sister or something like that, and Chariot's actually someplace else.
Yeah.
But they flat out said in this episode that Ursula is Chariot, so
yes,
got past that. And then also, I noted when I was looking through my anime list, you would suppose they would be voiced by the same voice actress, but they're not. It's two different voice actresses.
Oh, Ursula and Chariot?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, see, Chariot's Hidaka Noriko, and Ursula is... Nope, they're the same person. What did I look at earlier? Okay, ignore that. What I just said. Jesus.
That's interesting. It would have been interesting if they were different voice actresses because
I put a note there because I don't know, maybe somebody was messing with me.
Well, like Chariot's voice is like so much like happier and like livelier, so it's interesting. But yeah, so basically like Akko visits like Ursula's room, which is like the observatory of Luna Nova. Like it's like this kind of huge room. It's interesting. And kind of like sees like her without her glasses on, and like sees like her white crow, which I think used to take part in the Shiny Chariot performances, if I'm like not mistaken. But like Akko doesn't catch on because of course she doesn't. But then the rest of this episode kind of introduces this idea of these 9 old witches who founded Luna Nova like 6.
And they all had cool hats.
Oh yeah, then we see the hats in like the principal's office, or the headmistress's office, and like they founded the school like 1600 years ago when magic was still like really abundant and all over the place, and it was like at the height of their power. And they even used to not have to use like a sorcerer's stone back then, I guess, to use their magic. But at some point that changed. And Diana, like, coincidentally comes in as, like, the professors are talking about this, and she asks for permission to look for, like, an old book about these 9 old witches. So they give her, like, a special key to the reference archives of the school. And she's told, like, by the principal to go and look at the archives when the moon is high in the sky, because they have a blue moon that night, which is, like, a rare occasion when you have a full moon twice in 1 month. It's the second full moon of the month. And so she goes to the reference archives and she like opens the door and sees this like huge bookcase that's like a huge like spiraling tower, and she has to like fly her broom around it to even look because it goes up so high. And she wouldn't find anything except that the blue moon shines through the window and like casts a light on the book. And she picks up the book, and it looks like the light like disintegrated the locks on the book as well, so she could actually open it.
Yep.
And she reads about like this power that the witches had hidden away called the Grand Triskelion. And she doesn't know what it is, but it's sealed away within Arcturus, whatever that is.
Yeah, all it says is that it has the power to change the world.
Yes, and the only way to unseal it is with a staff called the... Now I'm going to pronounce it the way they said it in the show because like it's some Celtic thing, and it's like Clau Soleil, or Clau Solas, I think is actually how they said it in the show. I don't know if that's correct pronunciation, who knows. But it's like a staff with 7 stars on it. It's clearly Shiny Chariot's staff, which Akko has.
Yeah, it's Akko's now.
At the same time that Diana's finding all this out, Akko like had woken up from a dream where she saw Shiny Chariot, and she's she looks at one of her Shiny Chariot cards, which has like a blue moon on it, and she remembers the lore that she read in a book when she was a kid. And it tells...
She's telling her cat about it. It's funny.
Yeah, she's telling like her little black cat about it. The cat's yawning.
It's okay. I talk to my cats too.
Well, yeah, I think we all do. All the best of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And so she goes to like the part of the campus where she remembers reading about to try and find this place called the Blue Moon Abyss, where she can meet some sort of apparition that will appear and maybe tell her about her future or her past. So she goes to this part of the campus, and the blue moon, again, is shining perfectly through this round window, and it hits the Shiny Chariot staff, and it, like, activates. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shoots that beam of light at the floor, which opens a staircase down underneath the campus, or wherever she is. So she goes down. She kind of, like, runs into some stuff that scares her and, like, tumbles further down into this, like, inner sanctum of this place. And an apparition of Shiny Chariot appears in front of her, and Akko's like, hey, can you, like, I love you, blah, 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 like, my dream is to be exactly like you. And this Shiny Chariot ghost says, like, well, your dream will always be out of reach. And Akko's like, what? Shiny Chariot wouldn't say that. And so the ghost, like, reveals its true form, which is, like, this massive, like, tree-like thing. I don't know, like a giant like woman made out of like tree parts or something. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's hard to explain in words.
Yeah, her eventual second form is easier to explain, but I think it's like a druidic kind of spirit.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like she was a witch and she had more like druid type powers with nature and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and so this spirit tells Akko like I can reveal or like, what is it you want? And Akko wants her to reveal her future and like whether she can become a witch like Shiny Chariot in the future. And the druid says, well, I can grant you that future if you walk through this gate, like under my tree. But
you will lose all your past.
Yeah, you have to give up all of your past, but your past is unnecessary. You don't need your past. But Akko fights back and like eventually says, no, don't erase my past. It's like all the tears and frustration and all my failures and mistakes and all the laughter I've had, they make up who I am. And
friends, most importantly, those are in the little scenes.
Yeah, and all her friends, yeah. And she says the words that Ursula taught her earlier in the episode about like making your dreams come true, basically like Shia LaBeouf, like don't let your dreams be dreams. This is the Shia LaBeouf part of the episode.
It said something about basically working hard to achieve your dreams.
And like the phrase is like Faidoari Afaringor or something. And so this opens up another one of the stars on the staff and like activates it. Apparently what Diana had read from the book also was that there are 7 words to speak to Arcturus. I guess so the 7 words correspond to the 7 like stars on Shiny Chariot's staff.
And they light up as they're being unlocked or whatever.
Yeah, and she like hits the druid.
It's like a skill tree in a game.
Yeah, it's kind of true. Yeah, it's totally video game like. And so she smacks the druid with it. And it's kind of cool. She like transforms back into like a woman, like with like sort of purple skin, but she's clearly like a druidic woman. And then we see like these brief red like flashback scenes. It seems like probably from when the old witches of like yore activated this power the last time or sealed it away. That was my guess anyway. There was even like a brief flash of like some kind of like badass looking chick, like some witch from the past who I'm assuming will be important in the future. I had to like really like frame stop my recording to like to find that though. But yeah. But it turns out this woman, like Ursula shows up because she saw Akko in like a vision from the blue moon, and she finds Akko fainted on the ground. So she talks to the druid woman, who is Professor Woodward, who I guess is a professor that Ursula looked up to when she was at school. And Woodward tells Ursula that they need to like revive all of the words, and that she needs to guide Akko on her path, basically. So that's pretty cool. It was a really cool lore episode. It was like very like mysterious and magical.
Yeah, I really liked it. It just seemed like most of the episodes were, not most, but for the most part were episodic almost.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see that they actually kind of have a goal now. We know where we're trying to head, a destination, so to say.
Yeah, we have a place we're trying to find or trying to get to now. So that kind of, and that even continues on a little bit into episode 12, because like the start of that episode, Diana is still studying that book, and realizes that the staff must be the one that Akko has. So I think she's kind of on to what's happening a little bit. Akko and Ursula are still practicing stuff, and Akko's new goal is to master like metamorphosis magic, because she thinks that Shiny Chariot became the Moonlit Witch, which is like the highest or the best witch at the academy, as like registered at this like Samhain festival, which takes place on Halloween, October 31st.
Before you move on, when they're doing the metamorphosis thing, at one point she transforms herself into an elephant.
Oh, yeah.
And like goes and starts to float off and stuff. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, is this a reference to Dumbo?
It had to be. Like the huge ears on that elephant, it looks so much like Dumbo.
Yeah,
like,
and then it flew. So
yeah, and then it flew around. That's true.
I mean, if it's not, that's the most unintentional reference to Dumbo I've ever seen.
It was like so similar to the art style of Dumbo. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, the class is like all broken up into teams that have different responsibilities for the festival, and of course, Akko, who has the worst freaking luck, chooses the job of the sacrifices for her and Lotte and Susie. So their job is to be sacrificed to this old ghost named Bakawalawi, the Wailing. It's a weird name. Who wakes up at midnight during the festival, and the sacrifices are like offered to him, and he like eats them, but they don't die. He just like shits them out the next day.
Yeah, they said you'll pass through the digestive tract and you'll be fine. And like Susie's like excited about this. It's weird.
Of course she is. Everybody else is kind of like horrified, including Akko, who just doesn't want to have any part of this. Like they read a little bit more about the history of the ghost like later, and apparently he's somebody who used to be surrounded by friends, but they all died at the end of his life, and so he's just been crying about it ever since. Basically, he's like been in mourning for the rest of his existence. So I assume this is foreshadowing that Akko will like kind of make friends with him or something. But she's frustrated, so she like walks around the school and she stumbles across Diana, who is like chosen to be like the committee head of the festival, the youngest one ever. So she's in charge of like everything. And two girls are asking her what mirror they should use for some part of the festival. And she sees that one mirror is like a prankster mirror. Like she goes up to it and it kind of like sticks its tongue out at her with her reflection.
Yeah, but it's the one with the most magic.
Yes. So she's like, oh, we need to get some fairy dust to sprinkle on this, and then it'll be fine. But so Akko goes in.
It was fairy dust or something like that.
Yeah. So Akko goes into the room and stands in front of that mirror, and the mirror is like worse to her. It's like, oh, you want to be this girl, don't you? And it like changes her reflection into Diana, and saying like, oh, this is the girl you dreamed that you wish you could be. And then it changes her actual appearance into Diana, and that's where shit hits the fan, because everybody starts coming up to Akko, like asking her for help. Like I kind of start to feel bad for Diana, because she's got like the entire academy of girls coming to her, like asking.
I've
for
said
help.
it before. Diana's not the bad guy in this show.
No, definitely not.
No, she's just, if anything, just misunderstood. I mean, this was all thrust upon her. You know, it wasn't much of her choice. She can't help it that she's naturally very good at magic, and she also has her own goals that we find out in this episode, where eventually Akko ends up in her room because she looks like Diana.
Her room is
she
huge.
sees in her notebook about how she wants to whatever it was.
She wants to like bring magic back.
By doing whatever the last thing we were talking about was.
Oh yeah, like finding like
Fine.
Arcturus and like reviving the Grand Triskelion, whatever the heck that is. Yeah.
Yeah, and Akko, it kind of tears at Akko a little bit because now she sees that, Diana is actually a very good person. She's not the stuck-up person she thought she was.
Yeah. And there's like some shenanigans, but eventually Akko is like found out for being a fake Diana, and Diana just kind of confronts her and like yells at her, and she's in the right. Like she's just saying, Akko, like every time something goes bad for you, you like sulk around and lose all of your motivation. And so Akko is like kind of sulking around after this again, but Ursula sees her, and Akko's like, I can't imagine myself ever being as good as Diana. She's just so much more mature than I am, and I just look like a little kid next to her. But Ursula tells her that Chariot would say, like, don't compare yourself to others. Just do what only you can do. And then Ursula leaves, and a light beam shoots out of the Chariot's staff again, and it directs Akko back to that fountain of Polaris where she had been before in a previous episode. And the fountain tells her, like, Akko now has a good question to ask the fountain, and it's, what is the thing that only I can do? And it shows her this flashback of Chariot as a student at the school casting a spell called Arai Arira, which, like, turns, like, these animals, like, come bursting out of her staff and flying in the air. I think it's actually, like, her...
Yeah, she transforms and does those...
Yeah.
It's one of the things from her shows where she's like transforming into different animals and prancing around through the air and glittery effects and stuff like that.
And it doesn't seem to be like complicated magic. It seems like something that kind of flows directly out of her heart. So I feel like it's something that Akko could accomplish.
Yeah, because the episode ends then with Akko saying whatever that spell was. And she's like, I get it. And then episode cuts.
Yeah.
But then at the very end, past the credits, it cuts back to the, which is Diana. She played the prank on her two friends.
Yeah. Yes.
On the two friends of Diana, yeah.
Telling them that they'll turn into 82-year-old women if they don't let, like, Diana, Akko paint her face and, like, make them stand still for 24 hours. That was a pretty mean prank. But I mean, they kind of deserve it. So, yeah.
Yeah, because those two are kind of not very nice people.
Yeah. So that's where Little Witch Academia leaves us at the middle of the season.
Cool.
So.
How about some Gabriel Dropout?
All right, yeah. So
yeah,
we got episodes 11 and 12 of this. So why don't you take it away for episode 11 if you want?
Okay. Episode 11, we start off. Satanya, it's the same old gag where she thinks the dog's about ready to run up and take her melon bread.
Yep.
But then she suddenly turns and sees him being taken away by like the pet service or whoever.
Yeah.
The pound. And she's like, what? So she runs off to save him. Then you get your intro credits, and then it goes to them standing at the school, and she has the dog, and she's like, I had to keep him I had to save him to show him that I'm better than him. How else would he learn? But they have no place to keep the dog at. All their apartments do not allow pets.
Yeah.
So
they go to Gab's place, and she's like, why do we always end up here? And Rafi says, because it's the only place we wouldn't feel bad about bringing a stray dog, because it's so freaking messy.
Yeah. And then so they're like, there's no place to put him. So like Satanya gets like upset, and she like runs out with the dog. And as you just put, there's this way over dramatic scene of like
funny.
Her and the dog like walking through this like blizzard with some acoustic guitar, and like it almost made me think of like the credits to the Hulk, where he's like walking down the road hitchhiking.
Yeah,
it made me think of that a lot too.
Yeah, they took a train like all the way north up to Hokkaido. And but Rafi is able to find her because she bought a GPS service to track Satanya's phone in case
she
she
put
ever
one
ran
on
away.
her phone so she could always track her.
Exactly, which is a creepy thing that Rafi would do. So yeah,
it's not surprising at all. I was halfway expecting it, to be honest.
Yeah,
and it's funny because they go up there and they get Satanya, and she's like, "How'd you find me here?" And Vinette's like, "You don't want to know. It's better if you don't." But then they get back, and it turns out that the coffee shop owner actually owns the apartments that Satanya lives in.
Yep.
And some reason Gab knew this and got him to change the rules about having pets by saying she'd work more, which means she now works 2 days a week.
Yeah, so much more.
It's so crazy. And that's about the end of that whole scene. Then there's the middle part where Caprice is back, and she's been stuck in heaven. She doesn't know what a computer is.
Yeah.
But she wants to help Gab out with her MMOs because, we know she just adores Gab so much.
Yeah, and she's like, if I can make her MMO leveling more efficient, she'll have more time to properly cook and clean for herself.
Yeah, that's some of the best wishful thinking I've ever heard of.
Very optimistic.
But she's walking around. She goes by a library that says they now have PCs with internet access. So she goes in there and she's trying to figure it out, and she has no idea. Like, she moves the mouse over the internet button. That's it.
She calls the mouse
is called a hamster.
Oh my god.
Dude, it's just this dumb scene. But then she ends up going and get some books.
Yeah, like PCs.
The librarian directs her to some books for like PCs for idiots, beginner books and stuff like that. And she can't even figure them out, and it just kind of ends on that. And then there's the Takoyaki party part, which is just the end, and it's just kind of one-liners and whatnot. And it's funny because Caprice there, and she's like, I can help you, Gab, now on your MMOs. But it turns out like all she was learning was like JavaScript and all that fun stuff like that.
She was learning how to like actually program.
Gab goes like, what, are you going to be a programmer or something?
Yeah, which is funny. So, I mean, that episode was okay. I think the final episode was pretty good, though. Do you want to cover that, too?
Yeah, I believe the final episode was very good, too. We heard about Gab's older sister earlier, but now we finally get to meet her. Caprice, basically just going right off the end of the last episode, tells, because they're all there having their little party, tells Gab that her sister's going to show up tomorrow, and Gab just has, like, this crazy meltdown.
Yeah.
And Vinette's like asking Raphael's like, is she really that bad? And like Raphael's like, yeah, actually the repercussions might end the world or something like that, because she's like the right hand of God.
Yeah. Yeah, she's known as like the hand of God. Her name is Tenma Zalel White. And she's really straight-laced and kind of square. And so if she finds out that her sister Gab has become a fallen angel, she's going to flip out.
Yeah. So she shows up but Gab has come up with a plan, and it's like the Lil Sis Moe Moe operation plan or something like that.
Yep, that's what it's called.
So she's like dressed up as like a cat maid and acting super cute and stuff, and Vinette and Raphael are at the table, whatnot. And it's a really funny scene where Vinette's trying to lie about how Gab has done so much for her.
She can't do it.
And it's just showing all these scenes of like where it's been Vinette always helping her. But she's torn between being a good friend and not lying. And like Raphael is just getting her rocks off watching this.
Yep.
Oh, man. But then there's like a rattle from the closet. And she's like, what was that? She's like, oh, there's like a demon possessing it. So I just sealed it off, which she just just put tape over it and hold it down.
But eventually the closet flies open, and who comes out but Satania?
It's Satania, bound and gagged, of course.
And then Gob's like, oh no, it's the archdemon. And then Satania is just so happy to be called an archdemon, like that she like plays along with it.
Yeah, but Zalel, how are we going to say her name?
Zalel, probably.
Zalel looks good. Yeah, but she's known all along that Gab has fallen, so it was totally pointless. So she just takes Gab and she disappears. And then there's just kind of this middle part of like Satania, Raph, and Vinette, because she's been gone for like a week, and they're like waiting for her to come back, and they're kind of talking about, how they kind of missed her and whatnot. Well, then she shows up and she's super straight. She's her old self again, I guess, so to say.
Yeah, her like original angel self.
Yeah, and there's just a bunch of scenes of her being, a super good person, doing everything right. Well, they end up back at Gab's place again. And like it's Satania and like Vinette and like Raph like asking her to go back to her old self, and play video games, because like Vinette's conflicted because her whole schedule's been, helping Gab, and not having Gab there to help is just like messing up her life. And what was Satania's reason?
Her reason for what?
For wanting Gab to go back to her old self.
Oh, well, Gab was like kind of like being too like perfect around her and like making her like do things that she didn't do and stuff.
Being her perfect little minion. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just
she
like
needed the
freaking
challenge or whatnot like that. And Raph is just like, it's going to be like 30% less fun without her like that. But then Gab's like, haha, I actually have a barrier up around here, and she'll never know what things I do in here. I haven't changed at all. It's all been a front. But then Zalel shows up, and she's like, you think this puny little barrier will stop me? She like comes right through it. And then like there's a tussle, and like the melon bread falls out. And then they say something like, oh, I know how this scene's going to work out. Yeah. And then the dog shows up and starts like munching on the melon bread. And then Lazelle's like, Kya, or whatever they do. And they're like, what? And it turns out she's just like deathly afraid of dogs.
So she goes back to heaven.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. She wasn't before when she found out they thought they were going to take Gab away again. But she's like, no, I'm going to live here with Gab. And Gab's like, no, this is so much worse. Yeah. And then there's the dog, and she's afraid of the dog. And like they just end that whole scenario really quickly that way.
And yeah, and in the end, things are back to status quo. And Gab's like about to miss her final exam because she's really lazy. But they're like, so Rafi like calls her and tells her to get her butt over there. But there's only one way for her to make it. She has to teleport again. So she like puts her mind to it, and her skirt teleports to her desk. And then like all of the boys start worshiping it.
It's hilarious.
And then like she doesn't say anything, but she just pulls out like the horn of the apocalypse, and she's about to blow it, and that's when the show ends. So
Vinette's like, no, don't do that, or something like that.
Yeah, that's about like how I would expect this show to end, though. It's pretty good. It's a pretty cute episode.
Yep. Nothing for Tuesdays.
Yeah, Tuesday's a barren wasteland. And then Wednesday, we've got Kobayashi-san Chino Maid Dragon.
Oh, I want to... You were watching One Room.
Yeah.
But if you notice for the spring season, there's a One Room short, but it's a male version.
It's called like One Room Side M or something, and it's going to be One Room...
Are you going to watch it?
It's
a short.
I dropped One Room. I definitely will watch the first episode because I just need to know what that's going to be like. Like, I have to see. I'm actually very interested, like, how differently they portray, like,
so
guys.
Are you looking at through the eyes of a girl this time?
I assume so.
Man, I don't see how it could be any different.
Yeah, I assume this is, like, aimed at girls for sure. But so that'll be very interesting to see like how they portray male fan service to girls in the same creepy way that they portrayed female fan service to guys. Like,
I think making a comparison would be kind of interesting and fun, but I don't know if I could bring myself to watch One Room in the first place.
I mean, it's pretty short, but it's pretty horrible too. So yeah. I honestly think there will be worse shows than One Room Side M this season from what I've already watched, so we'll see. But yeah, let's get on to Maid Dragon, because we got 3 episodes to cover at the end of the season, because KyoAni went the extra mile.
Oh yeah, Jesus, that's right.
So the episode 11 was a New Year's episode, basically. And it was like pretty damn well executed, but before we just go into this description, I just felt like I've seen this New Year's episode done in anime like a million times before. Like, they didn't add much that was ever new. Like, I've seen this in so many different slice of life anime, this same episode. But the things I did like about it were like the stuff where they were exchanging food. Like, Toru like decides like she's gonna pound like her own mochi and like soba noodles out like on the roof of their apartment. So she makes a ton of it and has a bunch extra. So like the neighbors come by and trade like mandarin oranges and then like these sweet potato treats and stuff. So I thought that stuff was cool. I hadn't seen that much before in these types of episodes, but I don't know. Is there anything else that you really liked about this episode?
I think I liked most of it. I liked because they ended up going. Kana, Kobayashi, and Toru went shopping.
Oh yeah.
And they had some tickets to the lottery, and we, like you said, this is something we've seen, you know. And the grand prize is a hot springs trip. But instead, they win 3rd place, which is a kotatsu.
Yeah.
And then the show, the rest of this not rest, but most of it is just showing how they are basically slaves to the kotatsu. Now all they want to do is sit underneath it and stuff.
You literally like live under that kotatsu and just
because it's so warm.
Just their heads like sticking out above the table. Like it's really funny.
It's just cute little scenes of like being in all that little stuff. But then later on they go to a New Year's festival. Toru and Kana dress up in kimonos. Of course, Kana looks cute as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And just like regular anime, they run into everybody else at the festival. Luko is in a very sexy kimono with her tits just about ready to fall out.
Yeah.
They end up all going back to like Kobayashi's place and spending the night, and like they wake up the next day to see the first sunrise of the year. But really, I just say it's so short because I guess it was kind of boring, but it was still interesting.
Yeah, like I just felt like, because I've seen so many episodes like this before, I also thought it was kind of a boring episode, except for just like the sweet like moments that were in it. And it, like, if you just like cute Kana stuff, this had a lot of cute Kana moments. So, but why don't you do episode 12 synopsis? I only had like one thing to point out about that one either.
Sounds good. So Toru is determined to make like the most amazing omurice for Kobayashi because that's what she wants for dinner. Her first attempt comes out tasting just plain average to her because she just used plain average stuff. Lukoa ends up stopping by and suggests to Toru she uses high quality ingredients. And there's a little scene where Toru notes that Lukoa is actually dressed respectably, and she's like, why? Yeah. She says something about everybody saying she should dress more modest, and she thought she would give it a try at least.
And Toru's like, well, you're going to have to actually like change your body if you want to do that.
You need to change your body first. Toru goes out shopping, but like, higher quality ingredients obviously cost more money. She ends up going to her own world to get ingredients, and of course it's all this crazy looking stuff, and like they blur it out to put the mosaic over it, so it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's like you haven't played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but there's an item in the game called dubious food when you cook food that looks really bad and it's all pixelated out. It looked exactly like that.
Yeah, so Kobayashi's on her way back home, and she falls asleep on the train. And she dreams about the first time she met Toru on the mountain. And it's really cool to actually get to see how that whole scene played out, where she got drunk and stumbled upon her and ended up pulling the sword out and stuff. So I like that.
I got really confused when I was watching that scene because I was like, haven't we seen this already in the anime? But it was just me remembering having read that scene in the manga.
Yeah, see, because in the first episode, all you know is she got drunk, stumbled through the mountains, found Toru, and pulled the sword out, and that's all you get to know. Now you get to know like the little conversations they had and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so it wasn't completely crazy. We had seen like a little bit of that scene before. Okay, I was making sure.
So Kobayashi arrives home and, like usual, scolds Toru for using ingredients from her world because the omurice is just not the same thing anymore.
Yeah.
Kobayashi ends up asking Toru about the humans in her world. So Toru tells her a tale of meeting one that wanted to be a maid and fall in love with her master. Sound kind of familiar what Toru's doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I also noted that Maid character looked like a grown-up Rico to me. Did you get the same vibe?
I totally agree. Yeah. I actually thought like she was going to be like related to Rika or something.
Yeah, but her little story about the meeting that girl in the other world was about, just being free, making her own choices. And even though she became a maid, which is basically, I guess servitude, she's like, but I still chose to become a maid. So it was still my choice in some sense, rather than like how Toru's father is, is very strict with her.
Yeah, so there was like one brief moment that I really liked in this episode, and it was in a scene where Toru is trying to sneak under the kotatsu next to like Kobayashi, but Kana is also on that side, and there's just like not enough room for the three of them. So then Toru has to move off to the right side, and so she's obviously upset about it, and she starts to say Kana, and then Kana just cuts her off and says no. And they move on, but like what you're supposed to read into that is that she was going to ask Kana if she could like take her spot. But Kana's like, no, I want to stay next to Kobayashi. It was just a really little cute moment that if you're paying attention, you got it. But yeah.
Yeah. Did you like the episode 13? I thought it was pretty good.
I did. So, of course.
I like the way it ended the series.
Of course, we start off with another lowly Yuri scene between Saikawa and Kana. I'm just kind of joking at this point. But like, it was another one of those Saikawa freaking out and like giving a flower to Kana that in flower language means giving you my everything. And so, but yeah, like she does her little orgasmic face and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, after we get through that stuff, Toru is visited by her father from the other world, and he wants to take her home because he's convinced that
I really like his character design, even though it's like kind of cliche.
Yeah, he's got like an old man with like white beard and everything.
Strong,
yeah,
old man, with with like you said, the big beard. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, and his name is the Emperor of Demise, which is a badass name.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes I typed this wrong. He takes Toru home with him.
He takes Kana.
Yeah, I was like, he takes Kana. Like, that would be awkward. So then Kana tells Kobayashi that Toru went home. And Kobayashi, like, kind of takes it, like, as calmly as she can. Like, Kobayashi just, like, doesn't really react emotionally.
It was actually kind of a cool little scene because you see, it's just almost this drawn out scene of just, like, Kobayashi, like, slowly accepting it and turning it around in her head. And, like, you see, like, her emotions kind of slowly moving around on her face and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought it was just really neat.
And so Kobayashi kind of goes back to her old routine. Like, she wakes up late in the morning. She, like, spills coffee. Like, she barely gets anything ready for Kana to eat. And, like, she brings home, like, pre-made dinners at night. She makes mistakes at work, which she usually doesn't make.
Like the bentos from the...
Yeah.
Did you ever eat any of those when you were over there?
Bentos? No. Other people did, though. I ate a bunch of onigiri and, like, sandwiches and stuff from convenience stores that were really good. They make these, like, fried chicken sandwiches in the convenience store. Oh, my God. They're so freaking good. They're so good. Anyway, perfect train food. But, So
are we going to see how many times I can make you derail?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
This be a long ass episode. All right, keep going.
Japanese trains never derail. They're always on time. But let's see. So basically everything's off without Toru there being the maid and taking care of everything. And
they keep doing a shot of like their hallway.
Yeah.
And you just every time they go back to that shot of like her coming home and leaving,
it's like
so you just see trash slowly keep piling up.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like, Kobayashi just can't take care of herself, and
let alone Kana too.
Yeah, it's really affecting Kana more than we know, because Kana goes and sleeps over at Saikawa's house, Rika's house, one night because Kobayashi has to work late. And like, there's a scene with the two of them in bed, and I was expecting like more shenanigans, but it actually plays on that expectation because Kana like turns to Rika and like puts her head into her chest and like kind of like under the covers to hide the fact that I think she's crying, and
it's clearly a comforting type.
Yeah, no, it was like an emotional scene. Like,
yeah, it's clear as day, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah, I think she's trying to stay strong around Kobayashi, but she's really upset that Toru left, and she's probably feeling lonely and like left behind. But so, a day later or so, this is after like a week or so went by, I think, Toru comes back. She shows up in the morning outside Kobayashi's apartment, and she's like, hey, I'm back, but then her father is like right behind her. And so Kobayashi stands up for Toru. She like grabs her hand and says like, that she's a maid. Please don't take my maid away. And she's just like saying that, she doesn't want to go back. Like, you should listen to your daughter.
And during this whole thing, Kobayashi has kind of realized that she does. I wouldn't say I love Toru at this point, but that she really misses her and wants her to keep being a part of her life. And just really wants her there.
Clearly, like, a key part of her family that's missing, she feels like, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Toru just, like, follows her father through a portal to, I think it's, like, one of those open spaces where Kana and Toru used to play. I think they're still on Earth. But, like...
I felt like they went to, like, a totally different world, because it looked like some barren world.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. It was hard to say.
Yeah, because Toru and her father came to start butt heads, and he's like, all right, we're going to do this. And he goes to the portal, and Toru follows him so they can fight it out.
Yeah, but Kana also carries Kobayashi to the fight scene, and she gets in between them and tells them to stop fighting, and like starts like she basically lectures the Emperor about like, you dragons, like, you never know how to compromise, and like, you should probably have a little bit more faith in your daughter if you love her so much. And he doesn't approve because Kobayashi doesn't have the lifespan to live alongside Toru, but he kind of listens to Kobayashi and he flies away. And then Toru like runs and jumps on Kobayashi like and hugs her and basically like promises her that like she'll devote herself to her forever, blah blah blah. And then I really like the ending because at the end Kobayashi takes Toru and Kana on a train trip to her hometown to meet her family.
Yeah, she says, I think I'm going to go visit my family. I'd like you two to go with me. And it's just kind of like Kobayashi saying and admitting, you know, you guys are part of my family now. Let's go meet the rest of them.
Yeah, and I think she's realizing how important family is to her as well.
Yeah, or how it has become to her now.
Yeah. And, you know,
because before she was just a loner.
Yeah, and she's met Toru's dad, so it's only fair that Toru should get to meet her parents too. So, and the show ends as they arrive home, and like Kobayashi says, "Hey, I'm home." Blah blah blah. Tadaima.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good ending.
It was a good ending. I wonder if that show is going to continue. Like, it feels like it could go on, but
yeah, there's still plenty of manga out there, isn't there?
I don't know. Actually, this might be one where there's like. I think they might be almost up to where the manga is, actually, with this episode. So it may take a long time if they were going to make a second season. So
yeah. And we already did Kono Subarashi, didn't we?
Yeah, we finished that off last week. So we'll have our scores at the end, but nothing to talk about for now. So we move on to Thursdays.
That was awesome. Watch it.
So, Thursday. Masamune-kun's Revenge. And so this is the final episode. We had gone up to episode 11 a couple weeks ago. So episode 12 is the final episode. And Makabe is performing in Aki's class's Snow White instead of Gasso, the fat kid who is still locked in a closet somewhere. He barely makes it through the performance because he still has a fever. But like because he has a fever, he's kind of like overwhelmed by the end. And so he gets to the part where he's supposed to pretend to kiss Snow White, who is Aki. And instead of pretending to kiss her, he like just full on kisses her on the lips, which makes her punch him in the face, which
rightfully so.
The audience is a little surprised by, but the rest of the cast kind of makes it work. And so it's like a massive success of a performance. Basically, afterwards, both of the classes that were like competing against each other in this Snow White contest, they meet at a karaoke place to discuss how to determine the true winner. And they decide to determine the true winner, we're going to have a karaoke battle. So there's a cute moment where like Aki and Fujinuma end up singing this, what they call a Hada Puree duet, which is like kind of like, I don't know, Precure or something, or just like a magical girl like duet. Which was cute. The funniest part was Makabe, who goes last singing and literally just like kills everyone with his horrible voice. Like there's like a funny part where like Yoshino uses her last bit of strength to reach up to like the phone in the karaoke room and call for help from downstairs. But anyway, in the end, Makabe asks Aki for a kiss. Because she still wants to thank him for helping out with the show and because he technically won. And she gets really close and then doesn't kiss him. Instead, she shoves a sweet potato in his mouth. And that's literally how the show ends. So they never got around to resolving any of the revenge plot for Makabe. The whole Gasso thing where he's like supposed to be like breaking in on the relationship doesn't get resolved. So we're just literally left completely in the middle of the story with no resolution whatsoever. It's basically a very go read the manga ending, which sucks. It's a really shitty ending, honestly, for this show, which is disappointing. Because who knows if we're going to get a season 2. I mean, I kind of doubt it. I don't know how well this is going to sell, but we'll see. But yeah, that's not a way to end a show. I mean, don't end a show in the literal middle of the story. It's a bad idea.
I wouldn't suggest that either.
So anyway, but that's how that show ended up. Man, we've had a couple bad shows. I don't know that, or just like went downhill at the end, or never like brought it across the finish line. It's often the case with anime though, so I'm not too surprised. But there was one show that really finished strong. And that is Kuzu no Honkai, or Scum's Wish. So this show went weird places in the end, but I really liked what it did. So the last 2 episodes focus heavily on Akane and Narumi. So basically, she's like coming to the realization that Narumi is kind of like the right guy for her. And basically Narumi tells Akane that she's like surprisingly easy to get along with, because she's kind of dropped her act around him, because remember, like in the last episode, he told her that she can keep like cheating on him and he doesn't care because he just likes her so much. And so basically, like, she's just acting like a normal person around him now, and she kind of feels better about that. They go off to this like onsen resort, and she's still confused by him. She doesn't understand him, so she tries to use her like typical seductive moves on him, but he like runs away and goes to the onsen. And she thinks back to like the first time that they slept together, and she realizes that the only reason he lost his inhibitions then is because she forced him to drink alcohol, and he's like a total lightweight. So he just got really drunk and didn't know what he was doing. But he goes to the baths and like breaks his glasses there somehow accidentally, and he goes back to their room, and she confronts him about like what he meant by not having to stop being like a slut. These are like her actual words. And she says like it really throws her off that he's okay with that. And like she's like, I hate that you don't, she tells him, you have to hate that I'm being a slut. Like there's no other reaction to have. And she basically asks him to explain. He's like, it's really difficult to explain, but I love you and I just don't care.
Well, we know why. He wants to be the knight in shining armor.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's like, it's difficult to explain. And Akane responds, but you're a literature teacher. How can you not explain? And so he's just like, yeah, I just want to see the person that I care about live a happy life. And he just loves her unconditionally, which is interesting. And Narumi also explains, and I thought this was interesting, that he needs to control himself from wanting any more than that. Like with Hanabi, because he says, if I don't control my desires, I start wanting more and more. So that kind of explains why he stopped himself from doing anything with Hanabi when she like confessed to him, because he cares about her a lot and knows that if he let anything happen, it would go too far. So Narumi is interesting because he knows himself better than anybody else in this show probably, and knows his limits. And apparently he's like the perfect person for Akane. And so...
because he's going to let her cheat?
Basically, he's like... So it's actually really funny. So Akane and Narumi like start making love. And it's like kind of like a pure love, and like Akane hasn't like felt that in a long time, and it feels really good to be connected to the person she's actually sleeping with for once. And then the next morning, Narumi asks Akane to marry him, and she pauses for a minute, and then she's like, okay, but I'm gonna cheat on you all the time. And he like hugs her, and he's like, you said yes. So anyway, after this, like Akane had still promised to go on a date with Mugi. And so they go on this date, and he remembers this memory of her, like, revealing that she, like, when she was tutoring him, saying how she, like, never wants to be remembered, and he feels like she clung to roles like a teacher or pretending to be an older, more mature woman than she actually was to kind of assert herself and be attached to something. It was a weird thing. I didn't really understand that scene, honestly. But anyway, he's like still struggling to understand her and figure out how to make her like respond to him when she just breaks the news that she's getting married. And at first he like doesn't know what to say, and then all he can do is just congratulate her. And then they're walking home and they're about to say goodbye, but before she can get too far away, he runs after her like in the rain. It's like dramatic, and he yells that like he realized now that he loved her when she was like a broken, manipulative bitch. And that's the Akane that he loved. And he knows that she's changed now, but he says, like, I'll always remember who you used to be, and I'll always love that person.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Mugi earlier when I said the knight in shining armor. I meant Mugi.
Oh, no. Well, that's true. Yeah, Mugi meant...
Yeah, that's why he liked her broken, because then she was his princess, so he could go save her.
Yeah, but so the thing is, the fundamental difference is that Mugi wants her to change, or like to save her, and Narumi says, you don't have to change, I accept you for who you are, and that changes her because somebody accepted her. So it's just, she was like an interesting nut to crack, and Narumi was just like the perfect key for that lock. So anyway, that's episode 11. Episode 12, it's now like November, and Hanabi still hasn't spoken with Mugi since summer break when she got rejected by her older brother figure Narumi, and when he started dating Akane, but it didn't work out. Narumi tells Hanabi that the wedding is going to happen over spring break, and she thinks to herself like, oh, I guess things didn't work out for Mugi, serves him right. So she's still a little bit pissed about how that went down. And Akane asks Narumi to wear contacts, which is funny, and Hana tells him like, oh, I liked you better in glasses. But she also thinks to herself, actually, that's not true. I liked him without the glasses, but it reminds me of when he was younger and he was like everything I ever thought about. And it makes, like, basically the glasses helped her like distance herself from him. And so now that he's wearing contacts, he kind of seems like the person she barely got over. I don't know. So there's a school festival going on, and Hanabi is kind of like helping out with the class. But like she has a little break time. She goes and finds like Mocha is doing this thing where she's walking a runway. There's like her class is doing like a fashion thing.
That's a little blonde girl, right?
Yeah, the little blonde lowly girl or whatever. So she's like wearing like a wedding dress that she made herself, I think. And it's like gorgeous and everybody loves it. And Hana remembers Mocha saying, when you do something for yourself finally instead of for another guy, you'll realize how good it feels. So she's thinking about that. And then Hana is like supposed to bring some tools from her like class play somewhere else. And a boy named Moriyama like starts helping her, and apparently like he really likes her. He's about to like confess to her when he has her on her own, when Etchan jumps in, who hasn't talked to Hana in like months because they had a falling out, and like says like, oh no, Hana-chan is mine, blah blah blah, and like steals her away basically. And then Hana has like a conversation with Etchan saying basically like, I never thought you would talk to me again. I'm so glad that you like would still do like nice things like that for me and like help me out. And so they're like kind of on good terms. That's like where they end. And then basically the students all congratulate Akane and Narumi on their engagement. And Narumi sees that Hana's kind of like against the window, looking out the window in the room, and he's going to go over to her to like say something to her, like cheer her up. But Akane stops him, and she goes over to Hana, and it has a like pretty cool moment where she has like a a bouquet of flowers, and she gives one flower to Hana, saying like, take it, like, so you'll be next.
Did you bring the plague back from Japan with you?
Oh yeah, everybody got sick. Yeah. I'm like the least sick, except for
everybody else is much worse.
Yeah, people had like freaking pneumonia and stuff. It was terrible. Yeah, just don't go to Japan ever. It's terrible. You'll die. But there's this funny line where Akane says like, next time make sure you're like the next guy you date doesn't get stolen, and she like kind of smiles at her because like she basically stole Narumi away from Hana, and she knows it. But Hana's kind of like, okay, fine, you got me this time. So anyway,
Jesus,
this is where everything finally ends up. Hana and Mugi finally bump into each other, and they finally talk, and they just talk for a really long time and talk everything out, and they kind of comfort each other with words for the first time rather than physically comforting each other. But the really interesting thing about this show is that they do not get back together. They just both admit that they both tried their best. They didn't get what they wanted out of their relationships, and they both decide to just go their separate paths because they're both looking. They both now know that they're looking for real love, and that's something that they can't give to each other.
The thing I like about this show is like the choices people make and how they think makes sense.
Yep, I totally agree.
Unlike a different show we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah, I know exactly what show you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, that was an interesting ending. I'm really glad that it went with like an unconventional ending because it was such an unconventional show in the first place. So yeah, let's get on to another fun show, which was Saga of Tanya the Evil.
Youjo Senki. I really liked this show.
Yeah.
Episode 11. You messed up that. You must have been doing like 3 things at once.
I think so. Yeah, I see the part that I messed up. It's like a small detail, but it was because I was like kind of writing the synopsis as the episode was going along, and I didn't go back to fix that part. So yeah.
Yeah, but it starts where the last episode ended, where they're getting attacked.
Uh-huh.
And did you notice the sound effects in this scene? Because I really noticed it.
Yeah, there were some good sound effects for sure.
Really good. Like every little like ammo clip loaded. The special effects were pretty cool too, but really it was the sound effects that stood out to me because I don't really notice that stuff too much.
Yeah, I
thought
agree.
that was really cool, but it's just a cool little battle. They get attacked by a battalion, which is a lot bigger than her little group right now.
Yeah, of mages or whatever, and
yeah. And they eventually have to retreat into like some clouds, and then that's how they finally get their bearings and get regrouped a little bit, and they come back out kicking some butt. Tanya, we know from earlier, she stole old dude's machine gun from him, or it's like an SMG or something like that. It's a semi-auto of some sorts.
Oh, okay. See, I was wondering because I thought she was using a rifle, and I was like, wait, how is she shooting that automatic rate? Like, but I guess it was a machine gun.
Took it from old dude, that guy that's like leading that battalion now.
Oh, okay.
Because his daughter gave it to him.
Ah, okay.
And it was at the very beginning of one of the episodes, and I remember talking about because I was like, how does daughter get a hold of like some new age weapons?
Yeah, right.
Because like you said, everybody's using rifles, and like a handheld automated weapon wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah, but that old dude is still out for revenge, and like you corrected me, he pulls out like a pump action shotgun, which is in violation of an international treaty, which is a callback to I think World War I, when Germany complained about the U.S.'s use of shotguns in the war, because they felt that it violated international treaty, saying that like weapons should not impose like unnecessary harm on combatants, and they felt that the shotgun was just too powerful. But the U.S. said, no, screw you, basically. So
yeah, because I assume, I mean, you could hit people with a shotgun from a distance and be less likely to kill them.
Yeah. But
just do a bunch of damage.
Yep.
So they finally regrouped. It's a pretty cool battle. She eventually gets squared off one-on-one with old dude. Really, it starts out with him chasing her down, and through some pretty cool and tricky maneuvering, she finally becomes face-to-face with him, and she gets up close and personal and puts it's not her bayonet, I don't think. I think she was just a little knife she had on her. Gets him right in the gut, but then he grabs onto her wrist, and then like it's very obvious he's getting ready to like self-detonate and take her with him. Mm-hmm. But then she's saved by her first lieutenant. What's her name?
Viktorika Serebrikov, whatever her name is. Yeah.
The girl with eyes as big as her boobs.
And the horse face. Yeah, that's what I call it. God.
She like shoots the old dude through the just shoots him, and the bullet goes through him and gets like Tanya in the shoulder. But it allows her to let go, and then Tanya just like unloads her entire clip. The old dude.
Yeah.
But then he's like, "I'm still alive," and then he like detonates.
Yeah, he still explodes, and then his
because we know he's empowered by God at this point.
Oh yeah, and then reinforcements arrive for Tanya's side, and the enemy battalion like retreats, and then finally like all this black smoke from the explosion disperses, and we see that Tanya actually is still alive. She's like bleeding from the head, but she's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, like, so the Empire has destroyed the Republican army in this huge envelopment maneuver. So they're just moving on to like cleanup operations. And also, I was kind of annoyed because like it seemed like Tanya's troops were getting torn apart in this battle, but none of them actually seem to have died. Like they're just all injured and they all get like kind of like carried back.
What, you're annoyed they were getting...
No, I was annoyed that they didn't die. I was like, I wanted to see higher stakes. Like they got like...
Yeah, like all the ones who actually got shot down and landed in the water were still alive.
Yeah, they were totally fine. So the Emperor... so anyway, the Empire marches on the Republican capital of Paris, which is Paris. And they claim that the war is over. And like Lieutenant Serebrakov comes to tell Tanya that the troops are like partying on like a beach somewhere in France. And
oh, it's the beach episode.
Yeah, the beach episode.
But only the guys went to the beach.
Yeah, all the guys have their shirts off and they're doing their own.
So any
beach
female
episode.
or male listeners out there who like that kind of stuff, you get to see the guys in some short shorts and all buffed up.
It was a very short scene, but yeah.
It was short, but it was there.
And so like the Imperial headquarters has declared that the war is over and the Republican Navy is retreating. But then Tanya gets like very suspicious and she asks specifically if headquarters said that the war was over or if it's just they've declared an armistice. And it turns out it was just an armistice. And then Tanya is thinking about history from, the future. And she finds out that the Republican army is in Brest, which is, west coast of France. And the Navy is all going to retreat from there. And she looks at a map and realizes that they could just sail down to northern Africa and cause a whole bunch of trouble. Which is exactly what happens. But she tries to stop it. She goes to like a superior officer and says, please let me take my battalion and attack this base before we miss our like window to like end this war once and for all. But they don't listen to her. They think she's like overreaching, and she throws like a little tantrum because she had a chance to end the war, but she couldn't. But that's about that for that episode. So moving on to episode 12.
It's her. She's still trying to convince Command that they need to stop them. So she ends up going to their Capitol building or whatnot and gets stopped by, is it Eric?
Yeah, his name's Eric von something. I forget his last name.
Yeah, it's that dude with glasses.
Yep.
But he sees her leaving and he stops and talks to her, and they just, this is a very dialogue heavy episode. That's all it is just dialogue.
Yeah, it really is.
But they have this super long conversation, and it's just Tanya, she's like believing the generals are being too pragmatic and rationalistic in their thinking. While there might not be a rational reason to continue fighting, Tanya has seen enemy troops and her own troops driven to madness, and you get like some little flashback scenes of all that crazy stuff going on. Like one, like old dude it was all about revenge, and then also in that earlier battle in the last episode, one of her teammates, he went like hatred crazy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So she believes the war will continue whatever logic dictates. The meeting is ended when like one of the other smaller officers comes in and reports that the Republican troops are active on the southern continent, which is exactly what Tanya was afraid was going to happen.
Yeah, and so the generals, like the top generals for the Empire, are like eating dinner like they do. And they realize that they've made like a huge freaking mistake because like, and one of the guys like throws his plate on the ground because he realizes that the Republican like rebel forces have opened up a southern front now. So now they're going to have to send a force of their army to the south, but that would be fine except if any other country decides to join the war, like the Allied Kingdom or the US.
Because then they'll be fighting on way too many fronts.
Exactly. It's like exactly what happened in the World Wars. Yeah.
Yeah. This episode is titled How to Use a Victory, and Tanya at one point clearly states the generals know how to get a victory, they just don't know how to use a victory.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, just like she said, they were just thinking too rationally and not expecting that, people also make decisions based off emotion and hatred. And that's what's going to fuel the fires of like the resistance against this empire.
Correct. And they've made everybody their enemies by showing how much of a polished sword they are. Mm-hmm. And now by doing that, they've just made everybody fearful of them. So everybody sees them as the bad guys, but they see kind of everybody else as the bad guys. So it has a good example of no matter which side you're on, you view the other side as the bad guys, as being evil or whatnot.
Yep. And so Tanya's unit ends up getting sent south to North Africa by the generals to start taking care of the issues. But meanwhile, back in the U.S., a young girl comes to a recruitment office, and her name is...
She's old dude's daughter.
Old dude's daughter,
from
and
the episode.
Her name is literally Mary Sue, except Sue is spelled like the Native American tribe.
Yep.
And
the SIOUX.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's like the youngest possible age to be recruited, but she's determined to fight. And yeah, so she like gives this big speech about how she's gonna like deliver justice, and clearly in a season 2 she will be a big deal.
Yeah, because you also see they do the little eye thing where you see that God has basically given her power.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then Tanya's also doing her little speech, but it's just really cool because they do a parallelism of how Tanya, is fighting against the name of God, but Mary Sue is doing it like purely for God's will.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, I love Tanya's speech. So like she's talking to her soldiers in northern Africa on like the sand dunes. And she starts off by like thanking God, but she's clearly being kind of sarcastic. And then she like just breaks out and she's just thanking God for being such an asshole who keeps putting them in horrible situations. And she says she'll slice him to pieces and feed him to pigs. I love Tanya.
I do too.
And then
and even though she's like such a horrible person, I don't dislike her.
Yeah. And then like there's an interspersed scene where Command HQ is realizing that they haven't given Tanya nearly enough support in terms of troops, and like she's kind of fighting a lost fight down there. But then goes back to Tanya and she says like, this battlefield is no place for that piece of shit God, and the soldiers I lead are going to have to take God's place and put his arrogant ass out of a job. And that's how the series ends, or the season ends. I'm so happy.
And I will say her words are true, because being X is an arrogant asshole.
It's true. Yeah, at least the way he's portrayed in this show. He's a total arrogant prick.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That ended on a high note for me.
I would gladly love a season 2.
I think we're getting a season 2. I'm pretty sure I saw an announcement about that.
Oh, and also this is a like Studio Nuts like first standalone job, correct?
Yes, and so
I kudos to them. I love almost all the animation. There's a little like they did remember there was like the Navy boat scenes with like the really bad frame rate?
That CGI scene. Yeah,
they did that too. There's like the whole units of like the Republican troops, and they're all like cheering. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, and
yeah, I saw that too, and I was just like, ugh. But other than that, like I said, I love the sound effects. The rest of the animation was really cool. Like they would do, I don't know. Usually when they did like the theater spot, with the war stuff, they took on a different kind of animation style, and I really liked that one too. Yeah,
that looked cool each time they did that. I was gonna say just like they had delays, they had problems, but they got this show in the can, and
they had the one delay. Yeah, and like I said, they may have stumbled once or twice, but they definitely, if they were running a race, they definitely stumbled, fell, and did a nice roll and got right back up and running again. But I'm looking forward to see what else this studio will do.
Yep.
Since they're so new.
So let's move on to the next great show that we have to finish off. Episode 12.
And then hopefully never talk about again.
Episode 12 of Fuuka. So I'll take the synopsis because I know you couldn't possibly get through it.
It was so predictable.
Yeah, so the band is getting ready to play Yu's new song that he wrote for Fuuka. But Fuuka still...
She should be dead, by the way.
Yeah, she should be dead, according to the manga, apparently. But Fuuka still won't let herself go back to the band. But Yu's really determined, and they have a gig at that same place where they performed a couple weeks before or whatever.
Yeah, so Yu puts on his stalker pants every day.
Yeah.
to show up at her place.
You say stalker, I say John Cusack in that 80s movie Say Anything with like the boombox over his head. It's like it's supposed to be like that, I think, basically.
Dude, like at a certain point, like I was expecting Fuuka's mom to be like, dude, you need to stop coming by and like harassing my daughter.
Yeah,
or
like,
shit like
I'm going to
that,
call the police or something. But I think even...
But she kind of knew that...
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess she kind of felt that Fuuka, it's her fault, not really you.
Or like, I think she could tell that her daughter like wasn't being truthful with herself and kind of needed to face this problem.
Mm-hmm. Or we're just wishful thinkers. Because I don't think this show's writer's smart enough to do that.
So you, I think, kind of like plays the mom because he drops off a DVD of their Climbers High performance at Fuuka's house, and like her mom watches it, and like Fuuka comes home when she's watching it, and she's like, Fuuka, you look a lot happier when you're performing with this band, and like maybe you should. Are you sure you're doing what you want to do? And gives her a note from you telling her that the band needs her back and that he wants her to sing the song that he wrote for her with all of his feelings. So we finally make it to the day of the performance, and Fuuka hasn't shown up, so Yu goes like running through the streets.
Wait, you missed an important scene where the show had to flat out tell Fuuka that what's her name, idol girl, broke up with Yu.
Oh yeah, Koyuki. Yeah, Fuuka runs into Koyuki at like the studio. Mm-hmm. And Koyuki tells her that she broke up with you and explains this.
She flat out has to tell her.
And explains that it's like
show
because
shouldn't do that.
He felt the way he did about Fuuka. Like she literally just tells him. Yeah, tells her, and then like tells Fuuka to like, please be honest with yourself, or it'll just make things worse for me.
And like she knows this like a week before the performance, I believe, right?
Yeah, and she still just like won't budge. She just, I don't know. It's pretty overdramatic. I have to agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like you were talking before about how like the decisions that people in Scum's wish, even though they're like heightened and weird, they kind of make sense. Fuuka is like the exact opposite of that. None of these decisions make any sense. So
yeah, there's no reasoning behind what she does, why she does what she does. I'm just sit there going, okay, I guess.
Yeah, so basically, Yu goes running, and he finds her on the roof of the school where she always is. I wish she'd jump off. Actually, I was kind of...
I wish they'd hold hands and jump off together.
So,
I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to hate both of the
main characters. Yeah, it's usually a bad sign.
What?
And so he asks her to come back to the band, and she admits that... Oh, he confesses to her. She's like, he says like, hey, I actually love you. And she admits that she loves him too. And then they hug. And that's like the entirety of that scene. Like there's nothing else holding her back, apparently. Like she was just being a stupid girl about it. And they rush back and they get there just in time for the performance. And Fuuka apologizes to the whole band and everybody instantly takes her back. And then they perform Fuuka's song for you that she had written for you, and then at the end they perform Yu's song called Fair Wind, and honestly the song is pretty awesome. Like this clearly the best part of the show is the music. Like all the music is pretty good.
And it looks good.
Yeah,
but that's
it's pretty good. We see a montage over the song of like Fuuka apologizing to the record label, saying that she needs to quit, but then they like instantly offer to sign her band instead, the Fallen Moon, which if they had just done that in the first place, none of this would have been necessary. Hedgehogs also gets back together.
Yeah, but the guy didn't have any incentive to sign the band yet.
Yeah, I guess not. So
it wasn't until they made their own song, then he had an incentive. He's like, they can play an instrument. He's like, but I know tons of people who can play an instrument. I need people who can make their own music.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what they did. So that's why he signed it.
And I guess
the show could have gone more into that, and that would have been smart, but no.
Yeah,
they can't.
He probably also realized, like, Fuuka is a special singer. Like, the work that she probably did while she was doing solo stuff was probably impressive enough that...
Yeah, you're going to get the best from Fuuka if she's with this band.
So in the end, Fuuka and Yu visit a shrine, and she asks him what he wished for at the shrine, and he tells her that he wished that his bass playing would get better and that they could be together forever. And she responds, yeah, let's be together forever. And that's the end of the show. Very predictable. Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
And they resolved everything in just like one go.
Yeah.
What?
But the music was good. So, yeah. I don't know. I think it's hard to say whether it was worth watching all the way through this show just for the music. I'm not sure about that.
No.
I know your answer is like a definite no.
There was the one song that plays through the whole episode, and then not until episode 12 do you get to hear the second
That's
song.
true. That's pretty bad, actually. You're right.
That's not worth
It's
it.
not great for a music anime. So,
Oh, jeez.
anyway, I'll go through the last 2 episodes of Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu Season 2.
If I don't answer and fall asleep, just yell through the mic. I'll wake up.
Okay, so, episode 11. So, Sukeroku has greeted Yakumo on the other side and lets him know that he is dead. He's died. His condition got really bad, and he slipped into a coma and faded away. And he's not able to walk or see very well until Sukeroku shows him that with just a thought, he can transform himself into any age now that he's in the afterlife. So they transform into like their kid forms from like the beginning of season 1. And they walk to the Sanzu River, which I think he needs to cross to get to heaven, basically. And of course, Sukeroku being Sukeroku, he doesn't have enough money to cross the river. Partially because he didn't live a full life. The lover's suicide stopped that. So they go into an onsen before the river crossing, and they transform into their young adult forms so they can actually enjoy the onsen, and unlike their kid forms. And Sukeroku shows Bon the scar that Miyokichi left on his stomach from the knife wound. And Bon apologizes for not being able to let her go and claims that like all of this is his fault. But Sukeroku says they all came out at a loss from that situation. It wasn't good for anybody, and everybody was at fault. And all he can think about now that he's moved on is how gracious and grateful he is to Bon for raising Konatsu in his place. So they go to this geisha district as it was when they were like growing up in the afterlife, and they meet Miyokichi there, and she pulls Bon aside and like tells Sukeroku, I need like 30 minutes to talk things out with them, so go away. And so she talks to him and says basically that now that she's in the afterlife, it's nice for her to be free from her role of being a woman, because that doesn't really apply in the afterlife anymore. And she claims that she only had Konatsu to get revenge against Bon for being such an asshole and a prick to her. But now that she's dead and she's moved on, she can't stop thinking about Konatsu and how much she misses her. And she also is really grateful to him for raising her. So the three move on in their journey, and they come across the Rakugo Theater, which, since it burned down in real life recently, has now appeared in the afterlife. It's like the building itself gets its own afterlife. And the playbill at the theater is filled with all of these former Rakugo masters. And Bon's name is at the bottom of the list with a note saying that he'll be performing tonight. So Sukeroku performs, and Bon and Miyokichi are sitting in the audience when he notices that a child form of Konatsu is kneeling on a cushion between them. And Miyokichi says that the cushion can call any one person you want to hear your performance to be there. And she's like, the Buddha thinks of everything, doesn't he? And after a little moment of stubbornness, Konatsu gives her mother a hug, which is really sweet, and kind of like a nice closing touch. And so Sukeroku performs a story, becoming of his personality, about a fire brigade officer that indulges in drinking warm sake and eating hot boar meat instead of doing his job. And then, anyway, after that, it's Yakumo's turn, and he goes up on stage. And when he goes up, on the cushion appears Shinosuke, who is his grandson, the one he wants to see perform. And he looks out on the crowd and sees these people and sees Shinosuke and Konatsu and decides to perform Jugemu, which is that children's favorite story. And so afterwards, he gets on the boat and he's ready to cross the river. And Sukeroku and Miyokichi still don't have the money to go with him yet, but they say they'll follow close behind. So they're basically in purgatory until they can get past this river. And Tsukuroku tells Bon that, you loved Rakugo, you loved people, and you lived a long and fulfilling life. And they break down into tears, and they promise they'll see each other again one day. And Bon offers him like a pinky swear like he did when he was a child to seal that promise. And the driver of the boat removes like his straw hat and reveals himself to be Matsuda. And Matsuda's not dead. He just says that he was tending Bon's sickbed and like nodded off into sleep, and he just appeared in the afterlife one last to like bring Bon across to the other side. So that's how episode 11 ends. It's a really beautiful episode about like imagining what the afterlife could be like. But anyway, episode 12, we have a huge time skip to modern day. And Konatsu, her children are all grown up. So Shinosuke is like basically Yakumo's age in like season 1 now, and he is a rising star in the Rakugo world. And Koyuki is Konatsu and Yotoro's daughter, and she's kind of like a mix between both of them. She has like the fiery hair of Konatsu and like the face and like the brash attitude of Yotoro. And so Konatsu is pissed at Shinosuke for not preparing better for his big performance that's coming up. And it also turns out that she has become the first female Rakugo performer in history. So she kind of fulfilled her dream as well. And basically, Shinosuke is kind of like a Yakumo groupie. Like, he's not like Tsukuroku at all. He totally is reserved and thinks he performed like all of the traditional Rakugo works, whereas Koyuki prefers to listen to like Rakugo rather than perform it, and prefers her dad Yotaro style because it makes her laugh like nobody else. Higuchi has put together a huge biography of all of Yakumo's works, but he has one final question for Konatsu that's been bugging him for a long time. So he boldly asks her to finally reveal who Shinosuke's real father is. Because he doesn't believe that it's the mob guy from episodes back. And I never believed it was that guy either. I always thought that was like an outstanding question. And it's basically revealed, and it's kind of weird. Konatsu doesn't completely confirm it, but that Yakumo and Konatsu had a baby together, who is Shinosuke. Like, Konatsu says that like when she was growing up, she had all sorts of weird feelings, tumultuous feelings. And it turns out that she had a kid with Yakumo in there somewhere, I guess, which is kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that. It's a very strange place for this series to go, but whatever. She doesn't confirm it, and she'll take it to her grave, basically, but it's pretty heavily insinuated. The new Rakugo Theater is reopening, and there's like a massive like parade. Yotaro has decided to cast away the name of the Tsukuroku family and inherit the 9th generation of the Yakumo family. And then Shinosuke is set to deliver like the first performance, and he's nervous as hell, but Yotaro reassures him, and he gives him Tsukuroku's old Rakugo fan. He passes it down to him to carry on that legacy. And Yotaro opens the new theater with a speech about how Rakugo has changed and how it now includes old men, younger generations, women, and Easterners and Westerners, and it's bringing everybody together. Shinosuke delivers this like first performance. It's really good, and Yotaro closes it out with like a really incredible rendition of Shinigami, the story of the god of death, which is his tribute to Yakumo. And at the climax of the performance, he sees an apparition of Yakumo come to haunt him. And he almost faints from it, but he's able to recover and make a joke to the audience saying, "Oh, it was just a dream." And then, so after the performance, Matsuda is still there. He's 95 years old now. He's like super old. And he tells Higuchi and Yotaro the story of his like childhood after performance, and how when he was 14, he wanted to become a storyteller, but he didn't have a knack for it. So he stayed on to help the 7th generation and eventually help to raise Yakumo and Tsukuroku. And those two lived all of the dreams that he couldn't. And seeing them both die before him was really hard, but he lived vicariously through them their whole lives. And Higuchi tells Yotaro that he was worried about losing Rakugo with Yakumo when he died. But luckily, Yakumo left the reins to Yotaro, who carried it on. And Yotaro's like, yeah, you're a smart guy, and you really torture yourself too much. I never thought we'd lose Rakugo for 1 second. After all, how could we ever lose something this good? How could it ever go away? And that's how the show ends. Oh, God, it was such a freaking good show. I mean, it's just like on another level. It's clearly a show targeted way more at adults than most anime ever are. But man, did they deliver on that story. And it just like, God, it like really hits you hard.
So are you done touching yourself
now?
now?
Leo will wake up from his slumber. You should fucking watch that show at some point. That's all I'm saying. But it's a good show.
This is season 2, right?
Yep. And I think this is the end, basically. I don't think there will be more.
Yeah, I believe I watched season 1, and the first episode, it was like an hour special or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I watched 20 minutes of it.
Yeah. Well, that's stupid because that's one of the best episodes of the series. So.
Really? I was just bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just didn't care about them. I didn't care about what they were doing.
Like,
none of it was appealing.
Honestly, it's not like any other
and
anime.
I honestly didn't give it enough of a chance. I know that.
Yeah.
But
it's not like any other anime. Like, this is like a huge, like, adult drama story. Like, it's not fast paced. And yeah, I don't know. Like, for reasons like that, I am not giving this show a 10 out of 10. And we'll talk about that later. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and like I've said before, I'm just don't like drama shows.
Yeah.
It's just not my cup of tea, so.
But what show you do like is Interviews with Monster Girls.
I do like this show.
So let's see.
You thought this episode felt 100% like a final episode?
Episode 11, absolutely. So I thought this was the finale, honestly, like, or should have been the finale.
I didn't get that really at all.
I don't understand how you couldn't get that. So for some reason, this episode starts off like it's going to focus on finding ways for the girls to stay cool in the summer again, even though we just did that like 2 episodes ago. But Tetsuo gets confronted by the vice principal about not spending enough time caring about the non-demi students. So he feels like he's been maybe given too much preferential treatment to the demi-chans. And then like the others, like students talk amongst themselves about how they should think about the demis, and they come to the conclusion that treating them just like normal humans actually isn't fair because it ignores the parts of them that actually are different. Like, so like in thinking that they shouldn't treat them any differently from anyone else because of discrimination, maybe they're actually discriminating them by treating them like exactly the same. And
this episode is such a good message.
Yeah, it really is a strong, like, philosophical episode. Like, yeah,
you don't treat them different in a bad way because they're different. You treat them different because they actually are, but you still accept them for who they are.
Exactly. Yes.
That's the bottom line.
And so the demis find out what the vice principal told Tetsuo from other students, because he's now been like trying to keep his distance from them so that they can learn,
almost avoiding,
like learn their own lessons basically and find their own way. But they send him this video of like Yuki and Machi and Sato Sensei thanking him for everything that he's done, which is why I felt this was like a finale. Like this
really?
Is something that would happen in a finale is all of them thanking him for everything that they've done for him. Like, that's a total finale type thing to happen.
See, I felt like there were still some loose ends that I felt like got tied up in the second episode, so that's why I didn't feel like it.
Okay. So, it's funny, though. It's, like, cute. Like, so Hikari is, like, going to go last on the video, but then she doesn't. Like, she just, like, she just takes the whole video, and then she's like, tee-hee, I'm done, and sends it. So, but he's, like, watching this video on the beach, and like she randomly sees him and like shows up and then delivers her own message in person saying that there's like no such thing as trying too hard and that the others can support him and try just as hard to repay him for what he's done, and then it'll all be equal. But anyway, like the vice principal the next day is like looking out at the school and he sees like the demi-chans like mingling with the other students, and he basically says to Takahashi sensei like, I was wrong to disavow your efforts and put a hold on just like distancing yourself from these students because obviously you're doing something right. So yeah, I totally could have seen the series ending after that episode.
I kind of see your point of view, but I didn't think that at all until you said something. I was like, well, maybe.
Well, apparently what Leo thought we needed was a swimming pool episode.
Hey, I really like this. I thought this was a very good final episode also. And when it started off with Hikari wanting to... I'll backtrack to this other little part first. Wanting to get to the pool, I was like, oh no, we're going to put everybody in swimsuits. It's going to be the fan service episode. And I don't felt like it was like that at all.
It wasn't that at all. Yeah, I was actually really surprised.
I thought it was done very tastefully.
It was extremely tasteful. I love the only sexy parts were the parts with Sato Sensei where she was like, I'm going to take my jumpsuit
which
off.
Which makes sense because she's a succubus, so we're going to talk about sexy stuff with her.
Yeah, of course. And like I thought that was great. Like I thought that was just
and
really
they didn't
funny.
hide it. She's blatantly trying to seduce Tetsuo.
Yeah.
And we know that. So I totally get it. Like I said, I thought the whole episode was done tastefully. But I do also like how it starts off. It starts off with Hikari and Tetsuo. They're talking about... because Tetsuo just had like a dream where like he was attacked by like Hikari, like to suck his blood or whatever. And it gets really deep in how like the mannerisms and how like maybe vampires feel out of place and blah 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 blah. But they also talked about like how her eyes glow in the dark and why they do that, and why like animals. Everybody's seen pictures of like animals where you're driving your car. And you see their eyes light up in the dark, but human eyes don't do that. That's because the light reflects off actually inside an animal's eyes and it reflects back out. Thus, like, think of it as using light twice. So the reason they glow is because you see the light reflecting back to us. Our eyes don't do that.
Yeah, our eyes aren't cool.
Our eyes are not that cool. We can't see in low light conditions, but there's also a risk because then they have more light sensitivity. Obviously, which is just on a side tangent. If you notice, humans' pupils are round, but a cat's pupils are slitted up and down. That's because they can retract and expand way quicker than a round pupil can.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's just cool.
There was a brief moment in that early scene where Hikari's like playing around in his office, like with his lab coat, because she's like hunting. She's saying that vampires can hunt, and she trips and her skirt goes flying up and he sees her panties. But it was kind of funny how he handled it. He was like, oh, your panties are showing. And she's like, what? And then he was like...
Yeah, and they don't show it to the audience.
No, that was...
His shoulder's in the way.
Very importantly, they don't show it to the audience because I would hate this scene if they had, but they didn't.
Oh, it would have... Dude, that would have probably... I would have had a little bit of anger because I'm like, you were doing so well just to mess up on the 12th episode like that.
And this is getting way ahead of ourselves, but honestly, like I've watched a couple of the first episodes of the spring season, and like thinking about Arrow Manga Sensei compared to this is literally nothing. So get prepared for that show anyway. Moving on.
Oh god. So, anyways, it's Hikari is the one who wants to use the pool. And so Tetsuo gets permission and he invites Sato out to also go there. And she's thinking about, she thought it was like a date or something like that. But she's thinking of the perfect opportunity to try to impress him. So it's all the three girls. And then it's also the two delinquent girls are also there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like, there's just a bunch of shenanigans and whatnot. But I see you wrote, for some reason, Sato asked him what he'd do if a student declared their love for him. I don't see why you say for some reason. It's clearly obvious because she knows Machi is a potential love rival.
Yeah.
But Tetsuo is... That's why she asked. But Tetsuo is like, oh no, there's students. It will never happen. It'll never work. I can't do that.
Yeah, he's
so
like, I can't view them as
answer.
anything but kids, or also, importantly, my students. So at least Tetsuo understands how fucked up this would be. So yeah.
Yeah, and like some other people have problems with like the kids, like the children having crushes on their teacher, and I'm like, they're high school kids.
Yeah, I mean that happens.
This is totally a real thing. Yeah, it's the teacher to be like, no, which is exactly what it does. I'm like, yes, I love you, show, for doing this. But then Sato also says, well, I'm neither a child nor your student.
Yep.
And Tetsuo just
he doesn't pick up on it at all.
Doesn't get it at all.
He's like, yeah, you are.
It just whips right back by his head.
Poor Sato.
Yeah, but they're all playing out in the pool, but obviously Machi's head isn't out there, so it's like sitting on like a little like a lifesaver tube thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, and Tetsuo is over there talking to her, and they're talking about like Dulhan legends and all that fun stuff, and why it's mainly made out to be like a knight figure, and they just kind of go to the assumption that, like, you know, the first famous Dulhan was probably a successful knight, and that's just what stuck.
Yeah, propaganda wise.
And then they eventually get to the point to where like Hikari's like, hey, you're not moving your body anymore. She got like totally distracted with talking with Tetsuo. Yeah. And she's like, hey, have you ever seen underwater? And she's like, oh no, you know, we never put her, you know, she's just never had her head underwater. And they talk about like, you know, Dulhan's crossing a stream, and, you know, like, she's like, oh man, that'd be game over if you dropped your head in like a running stream, you know. In a pool, you're like, okay, I could probably recover. But in a running stream, if you dropped it and it swept your head away, she's like, it's instant death.
Yeah, you're just screwed at that point.
Yeah, so Tetsuo calls her dad to get permission to, you know, put her head underwater, just, you know, to be a responsible adult. And it's just a scene so Tetsuo can take his shirt off.
Yeah.
And like all the girls are like, they're all like, whoa. And like, dude, I was cracking up when Sato but had to like cover her mouth because she's like screaming. Yeah. And like, dude, Tetsuo is
he's
jacked.
Totally ripped.
Holy crap.
He's like ridiculously ripped.
I want to know what he's working out, because he's doing more than 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and 100 squats and a 10-kilometer run.
Yeah, so
he's like, while he's teaching his classes, he's bench pressing his students. He has to be.
Probably. God, yeah, he's a complete beast.
Yeah, but so like he gets permission, and like so he takes Machi's head and puts it under the water, and you really liked the scene. You thought it was done very well.
Yeah. It was like, I just liked the look of the underwater. I thought was like really well like portrayed and everything. Thought like the art was done really well.
It looked pretty legit to me.
Yeah, it was definitely.
I mean, that's actually what it looks like with the weird, like almost hexagonal patterns on the bottom of the pool.
Oh, and then what I really liked was just after that when all of the girls get into the pool and they start splashing around. And to do the splash effects, they used CG, but it was in slow motion, and I thought it looked like super good. Like all of the water flying around the girls in slow motion was all CG, but like it kind of blended in enough that like I really enjoyed it. Like I thought it really added a lot to that scene.
See, I didn't even notice it was in CG.
Yeah. I mean,
that's how well
it kind of had to be, because there's like so many different particles moving around at once. But yeah.
Oh man, animating that would just be a nightmare.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keeping up with how good they were going so far. But yeah, that's the whole pool scene. And then it comes to the final scene, and you got Hikari, and she's walking up to the school, and she sees Tetsuo standing out front, and she's like grimaces, and for a minute I was like, did I miss something? But then she launches into this super great heartwarming story, how they first met here, and you know how it's so sweet and neat, and all the stuff that's happened since then, you know, and you're just like, oh, this is a cool send off. Yep. But then Tetsuo's like, well, you're still tardy, so you're gonna have to sign this.
And she's like, damn it, I thought that would
just
work.
Lost it. I was like, this is the perfect ending to this anime. That just to end on that note, because it's so serious and goofy at times, and it ended dead on that, and I was like, oh, I want to hug the people who made this show. You did such a good job.
Yeah, they did a solid job with the show, all said and done, for sure.
But that's the end of interviews with Monster Girls. If they got more material out there and they eventually make a season 2, I would love to watch it, because I think the writer or writers, I'm not sure, do an amazing job on this.
Yeah, I think they do. All right, so one last show to get through, and that's March Comes In Like a Lion, episode 22, which covers chapter 45 of the manga. And so it's a new school term for Rei. So they're starting basically just like an interspersed episode in between this and like the next big arc, basically. I think season 2 of this is going to come out this fall, or I think that's correct. So anyway, where it's stopping is Ray on his new school term, and like he's having trouble, like, you know, eating lunch with friends or something. Like, realizes he really needs to kind of start trying harder. But he also needs to focus. He realizes he needs to refocus on making like the next rank in the shogi tournament as well. And his friend Nikaido realizes that like if they were gonna make the next rank, they would both of them they would have to meet in the finals of the new placement tournament and fight against each other, and then they would both make the new rank. But his teacher, who's become like his mentor, sort of sees him walking around and basically says like, you know what, you should try to start a shogi club at school. And he's like, okay. And of course they'd need 4 more members, so that's like impossible for him. So the teacher tries to help out and says like, if we can find members, like I'll be the coach too. I'll be the like mentor or whatever, and the advisor. And then he's like, and you can give me free professional coaching. And like Ray's kind of annoyed that like this is like his like actual motive for starting the club, is that he just wants free shogi coaching from like a super good student. But so the problem is, of course, nobody wants to join the shogi club until they go excuse me, and meet up with like the chemistry club, like which is called like the after school burners. These like total nerds who are harvesting natto at school. Natto's that like disgusting like soybeans or whatever with like, I had this in Japan.
They're fermented soybeans.
Yeah,
right?
I had this in Japan for the first time, and it is just as like slimy and stringy and smelly and disgusting as you would expect. It's
speaking of, there's a really cute episode of not episode, but a scene of Kana from Kobayashi Maid.
Eating natto. I saw that too. Yeah,
where she's like stretching out and being goofy and like leaning back in her chair.
It's literally that stringy. It is so stringy. Like, it just gets everywhere.
I'm just wondering, do you like cheeses?
Cheeses? Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever had like really stinky cheeses and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've had those, and I kind of enjoy some of them for sure.
Okay, I just wondered if there was like a similarity between that and natto.
I think the thing about natto is it's not like actually that bad smelling, or at least the ones I had weren't. What was bad about it was just like the spider web like strings between everything. It's kind of like strings of like really stringy cheese or something, but like they just don't come apart, and it just like gets on your face, and like there's no good way to eat it. It's just like impossible. It's just a freaking nightmare to eat. Like I can't. Oh God. Anyway.
Well, I can't even use chopsticks, so that'd be hilarious.
So yeah, and it's hard to eat them with chopsticks as well. So anyway, the club is like, the after school burners club is also in danger of being disbanded. So they figure out like, hey, if Ray joins our chemistry club and we all join his shogi club, then problem solved for everybody. So they form the after school shogi science club, or the Shosai club. And then that's the first half of the episode. The second half of the episode starts with like this depressing look back into Ray's childhood, where growing up, all the kids in his class didn't like him, and like he wouldn't sit next to anybody. They wouldn't sit next to him on the bus because he was like a nerd and a loner. And he basically had no contact with other people, or at least no contact that he actually enjoyed. But he realized at one point that as long as he had a ticket for a shogi match, someone would have to sit across from him for like 40 minutes or like a couple hours, however long the match lasted. So like those moments when he was playing shogi matches, when he finally could get to like know another person through the game, was like this connection that he relied on for socialization, like growing up forever. And so that's just like an interesting revelation about like why he is the way he is. And then the show ends by getting you hyped up for the next season coming in fall, with a look at like the people that he might face, including the Grand Master Soya, who's like his final boss whenever he gets there. But yeah, so that's basically the end of the season. I wrote here, I guess this kind of comes into my score review at the end, but like the one thing I kind of marked this show down for is it didn't have as many hype moments as you would want from like a game, like sort of tournament type thing. And I hope that the second season has a lot more of those. like my favorite show of all time, Chihaya Furu, which is about Karuta, which is another like Japanese game with cards, not like a board game, but it like was extremely good at mixing like slow character building story moments with extremely hype games and tournaments and just awesome moments. And March Comes In Like a Lion, for better or for worse, is just a much more character focused show, and a lot of it is about depression, so a lot of it is really slow paced and depressing. So as much as it's a great character study of this guy, it can be hard to sit through like 20 episodes about depression at the end of the day.
That just sounds like a nightmare to me.
Except it's really beautifully animated and it's really funny at times, and it has.
So you're sitting there, you're like,
yeah,
you're so beautiful.
It's like all about the balance, because like it has these really cute moments with like the cute sisters, and it has these really funny moments, and then it has these really depressing moments, and it has this gorgeous animation, and it's just like finding the right balance with all that is a hard thing to do. But anyway, we made it. We've reviewed all of the shows that we could bear to finish this season. And so we're finally at the end. So let's go day by day, I guess. So Nyanko Days, final score, I'm at a 6 out of 10.
I give it a 6 out of 10 also because I think it's just above average.
I'm very sad to give this a 6 out of 10 because like at one point I had this at like a 9 out of 10.
Like probably episode 1.
Episode 1, like I was like, is this a 10 out of 10? I was like, is this the best show of all time? But it didn't do enough with its premise. Like I think it's barely above average for me just because I was so excited about those first couple episodes that were just like so freaking cute and like the cutest animation. But then it just got really generic and it got sidetracked a bunch of places. I think 6 out of 10 is kind of a generous score.
I agree with all that, and I gave it the extra point over an average because I still enjoyed it. So I can't give it a 5. I have to give it a 6.
Yeah. So, and then next one, I'll give it a mid-season score for Little Witch Academia. I know it's not over, but mid-season, I'm still really enjoying this show. Like, yeah, there's...
Did you just add that? Because I wasn't there.
Yeah, I added this recently.
Oh, man. If I had to give it a mid-season score, I don't know if I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, that's what I gave it. I gave it a 9. I'm just in love with Trigger.
I have a couple problems with it. I noticed today I did watch the last 2 episodes on my computer, and I've been watching it mostly on my phone at work. But I felt like the animation quality dropped a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. They haven't done anything crazy as when like she shot herself out of a cannon onto a broom. Like that was like the height of the animation for a while there.
Yeah, but excuse me, I think I would give it I'd have to give it an 8.
Yeah, that's a solid grade. I think that I don't know, I could actually be talked into an 8, but I'll leave it at a 9 for now just because I like so much what the show is doing. Like we've talked about how Akko is kind of annoying and we want her character to move forward, but she's sort of started to do that.
They just now did, and they brought in the lore. So, like, I see my score definitely going up as long as they keep with this pace.
Excuse me, God. Anyway.
We know you're dying of the plague.
The next show on the list, Gabriel Dropout. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. I thought this was a perfectly average show. Like, a lot of people will say 5 out of 10. Oh, that's a terrible score. No. I score on a 1 to 10 basis. So 5 is, like, a perfectly adequate, perfectly average show.
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the average stuff about it, but a lot of the jokes got through to me. I thought they're pretty funny.
Satania was an awesome character.
Satania was an awesome character.
Yeah.
I even like Raphael, she was okay, but really Vinette, after every episode, she grew on me more and more and more, and she eventually became one of my favorites also.
Yeah, she's super cute, and like it's just funny, her internal struggle like throughout the show is funny.
Yeah, especially on that final episode where she's trying to lie. It's oh man, it was killing me, dude.
So I'll mention, even though we dropped them, Akka, I think where I had left off, I had that as like a 4 out of 10. I did not finish that show. From what I've read, that show did not go anywhere, which is what I predicted, so I'm glad I dropped it. Handshakers, that's a 1 out of 10. That's like a 0.5 out of 10. That's like a 0.1 out of 10. Let's not even ever talk about Handshakers again. By the way, Handshakers is getting a prequel season.
Are you're
I'm not
with me,
fucking
right?
with you. I literally wrote like, oh, so so they're making a prequel season to Handshakers, and I'm like, oh, so what did the production committee think about this? Like, sir, Handshakers has been a tremendous success for us. How can we make a season to follow up on that success? I have a great idea, Bob. Bob's probably not a Japanese guy, but I have a great idea. We should make a prequel season. So
Well, if he's making bad choices, let's give him the name You.
yeah, you. What should we do to make this next season of Handshakers just that much better? Well, let's make it a prequel so that all of the little loli girls can be like infants. Just make them younger and younger and still sexualize them. And it'll be great and we'll make so much money.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I sent you a picture, too.
Oh, did you really? Wait, on my phone? Where are you? I don't know where my phone is.
Of course on your phone. What do you think I did it on?
Wait, is it? Oh, it's Vignette. Oh my God, it's grown up Vignette. Oh, that's lewd. That's lewd right there.
Oh, I have one of a Kana too, but it's tasteful.
Oh, I've seen that.
Least.
That Kana grown up picture, if it's the same one I'm thinking of, just looks exactly like Amelia from ReZero with like a Kana like dress like outfit on.
The answer to your question.
Okay, and ask a question, phone.
What the hell's going on? All right, we're getting off
My
the
phone
rails.
just went nuts. It thought I was asking a question. I'm like, I didn't press anything.
Akiba's Trip, I would have had that at like a 4 out of 10 before I dropped it. I don't know. One Room is also a 1 out of 10, but it's not a 0.1 out of 10. It's like a 1 out of 10. And then, okay, Kobayashi Maid Dragon. That I also gave a 5 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, which I understand people would think seemed low. I really had major issues with how they sexualized Kana, like liberally.
I do too, but that's why my score is a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I just...
Because otherwise, I would have given this definitely an 8, a contemplative 9. But that disgusting pedo crap definitely hurt the show for me.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, the show didn't do, like, too much interesting stuff, I guess. It was animated, like, really well. Like, I understand, like, I also just didn't really... Kobayashi's character didn't work for me a lot because, like, she just has no emotion whatsoever. And I was kind of hoping for more emotion out of her in the last episode where Toru was, like, ripped away from her. I thought that would actually make... Like, she does get, like, forceful with her father.
I felt like they got that across without her being emotional, because that's not who she is.
I guess, yeah, in the end of the day, she's just not going to...
Because I spoke about the scene where Kana tells her she was taken back home by her father, and it's you just see her thinking about it over her head and, like, the slow reactions across her face and whatnot. And I really like that.
Yeah, and that's a testament to Kyoto Animation being able to express that stuff through their facial features alone is something that KyoAni's really good at. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I could be talked into a little bit higher score than 5 out of 10. Maybe it's like a 6 out of 10. Maybe it's a 7.
I felt like you should have at least given it a 6. I feel like you enjoyed it more than just an average.
You know
show.
what? Just for you, I'm going to change it to a 6 right now. Next show is Konosuba.
Season 2.
Now, I have this a little bit lower than you. I have this at a 7. I think I had the first season at an 8 or a 7. I liked the first season a little bit more of this show. I
think I like season 2 better.
So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, season 2 definitely had great moments. Like, I really loved the first episode.
Yeah, I've always liked Darkness better, and I didn't really care too much for Megumin.
Yeah,
and they take kind of a role reversal in season 2. Darkness comes up front, and Megumin kind of takes a step back.
That's interesting. Yeah, I thought like Darkness's character was always kind of like a little bit one note. I don't know. I don't necessarily love Megumin either, or Aqua. Which is, they're all shitty people, you know. Like that's what makes the show funny.
That's why I love them, because they're so shitty. And I just think would you give the show? Did you?
I said 7, yeah, which is a good score.
I gave the show a 9.
Fine. Yeah,
I gave it a 9 because, and the only reason it doesn't get a 10 is probably because animation quality.
Yeah, animation quality
could definitely been a lot better at some points, but other than that, for a parody show, I think it's amazing, and I think it does just a very, very, very good job at recurring jokes.
Yeah,
like Megumin's explosion magic either being the most useful thing in the world or the most useless, Aqua always getting them in trouble, and Darkness being like the biggest masochist in the world. And they were just constant recurring jokes. They would just put like a little bit new take on them. And I found them just as funny, if not funnier, than the previous joke about it.
And part of that is just like the voice actors are so into these roles, and they do such a good job with them. Like each one of them.
Oh yeah, I feel like the voice actors are like having a blast voicing these characters.
Yeah,
they do. Their emotions come across so well. Like a dub of this show could never live up to it.
Yeah. And you know, like the voice actors do like those like shows that like to promote like the anime and like everything. I wish that stuff would get dubbed more often, like on YouTube or something, or not dubbed, but like subtitled in English more often on YouTube. Because those things like always seem like they're completely hilarious. Because like Megumin's voice actress and like Kazuma's voice actor just like going nuts, like trying to promote stuff, and it's obviously hilarious. Like I feel like there'd be a market for just, you know, translating that stuff. And like,
well, there's also a thing about like the voice actors all actually being in the same room and stuff like that.
That's fun to see too,
which definitely sounds like it would help, you know, because they could easily play off each other's moods and emotions that they're trying to get across, other than, you know, either at some point they have to guess. They can always say, I guess, take one of their audio and give it to the second person, but somebody has to go first.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. It's nice to have everybody at the same time. You can't always do it, though. But it seems like Japan, that happens pretty often.
Which one?
Having people in the room together, like the entire ensemble.
Well, it's probably because they all live in the same studio.
Yeah, and also just like having been to Japan, like, God, like you can get anywhere by train in like a couple hours. It's insane. So it's nice to live in a small country with a great transportation system like that. But anyway.
Okay, let's do Fuuka so we can never talk about it ever again.
Oh, you want us to skip to Fuuka?
I gave this a big fat 3.
I gave this a 4 only because I just really liked the music stuff.
The reason it even got a 1 or 2 and a 3 is because the music was good and it looked good, but the writing, I just hate the writing of the show so bad.
The writing's terrible. It is totally bad.
And the writing is 75-80% of a show.
Yeah, I mean it's a drama, so it's like all about the writing.
Especially if it's a drama. So if it's just bad, I can't go I can't go anywhere above a 3. There's no.
I also gave it a 4 for having the balls to break away from the manga and do something different.
That was interesting.
So it's kind of an interesting choice that they made.
But I felt like they just did that so they could make it 12 episodes and just have it ended. Because if they wanted to go with the manga, they would have to do like at least 24.
Yeah, it's true. That's a great point, actually. Like they could not have done the manga because it would have been so goddamn depressing.
And longer.
Yeah. It would have been pretty terrible, actually.
So like it felt like the choice was just made just so they can make it 12 episodes and have it ended.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to give them credit for that.
Let me just skip back to Masamune-kun's Revenge, which I'm also giving a generous 5 out of 10 because I freaking loved Fujinuma's character. I just fell in love with her. I thought like the honest moments that she had with Masamune were like the best parts of that series. And I thought those the specific episodes were done really well. The whole thing with Aki and Gasso and everything at the end like did not get resolved whatsoever. Maybe they're planning on a season 2 because it really did just get left in the middle of nowhere. And that's a terrible thing to do for a show, but you know, If they decided to end it in the middle of the show so they could continue it at some point, that's okay. If at a future date they never do a second season, I would maybe lower my score for this show, because that would be a crappy way to end it. But yeah, it was like a decent average romantic comedy. I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you that. I thoroughly did not like the manga, but I didn't watch the anime.
So what did you think of the saga of Tanya the Evil?
Oh, man. I thought it was a definite solid 8 out of 10. I don't really have bad things to say about it. It just didn't feel good enough to be a 9, let alone a perfect 10.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely love to see more, and it's still something I highly recommend.
Yeah.
I found it completely entertaining the whole way through.
I definitely am interested in seeing more of this. I thought it was just above average in the end. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I could be maybe persuaded to give it a 7, but one of the reasons for me is that towards the end of the show, it kind of just became more of just a military procedural. And at that point, I felt that it lost a little bit of its personality. Being X just disappears, and doesn't come back at all for a long time. And I was really interested in that dynamic between Tanya and Being X, that battle.
I'm totally fine with that because I felt like Being X would have been overplaying his hand if he showed up too much. Because if he became too much of a closer to a main character, I think he would have lost his importance. So him still being a far distance thing that only shows up to taunt her very, very rarely, I think is great. I like what they did. I like that they did that, and you don't.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I guess they kind of had Being X show up in the form of that old dude to try and kill her. And basically he's been granted God's power.
A part of his presence was still there. He was still influencing her, and she always, and then a couple of the other nations intervening was his influence also. He's still moving pieces around. He's just not standing front and center like Tanya is. So he's still there. He just never completely disappears.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also didn't like that the Germans were winning.
What they weren't even the Germans, they were the Empire.
I know,
right?
but they're basically the holy. Well,
they're representing the Germans.
But they're the Austro-Hungarian and German Empire, Prussian armies, whatever, from World War I.
And I was totally fine with that because, like I said earlier, depending on which side you're on, you always see the other side as evil. And I felt like they did that good. They made from the Empire's perspective, they were the good guys.
Yeah, and at the end, it did have a kind of anti-war message. Whereas in the beginning of the show, I thought this was going to be this is going to be just pro-war battle Loli the anime or something.
Oh yeah, it has a big anti-war message at the end.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And it's coming straight from Tanya.
Yeah, that's definitely. And an anti-God message, which I very much approve of. So
there's that. There's also a pro-God, I guess, but I feel like it's more of an anti-God message.
Yeah. I'll throw one in. Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu Season 2. I am giving a 9 out of 10, which is the same score I gave the first season. And the main reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is that, God damn this cough, it's coming back now.
You're gonna die. You guys heard it
the
here.
The show is killing me.
Final
killing
words.
me just like Yakumo. I'm gonna die. So
if I made you watch through Fuuka again, would that be the killing blow?
Probably. No, if you made me watch Arrow Manga Sensei again, even more than one episode, I would kill myself. So, yeah.
Oh man, that's on my list. Jesus, I'm still
congratulations.
Gonna watch it, though, at least 3 episodes. Thanks. I have that to look forward to. Go ahead and go through your shows, and then we'll save interviews for last.
Okay, so Shouwa Genroku. I just felt that certain parts of this season dragged, and I felt the same way about the first season. And it's the kind of reason why some people like Leo will never pick up this show, is because it just doesn't appeal to everyone. It's not a show for everyone, and that's not a knock against this show, but I just felt like certain Rakugo performances, certain things could have hit harder. Certain things could have been more entertaining about this show. When it did hit at its highest moments, it's as good as anything else that is going to air ever in anime. But yeah, it's not a perfect show. It's very close, though. I really liked it. March comes in like a lion. After 22 episodes, I'm giving that a solid 8 out of 10. Like I said before, Shaft's animation on this show is just so inventive and interesting to see. It is hard to watch at times because it gets so depressing, but there are the cute girls, the cute cats who are constantly trying to eat food and have that inner monologue every time they see the food on the table. It's really funny. But I'm very interested to see where the second part of this season goes. I know it's like kind of a legendary manga at this point, so I'm very excited to see when Ray starts getting into like tournaments and he starts winning. I want to see him win. I want to see him like overcome his demons and how that plays out. And then I guess I'll say this one. This is my kind of big surprise. Scum's Wish, I'm giving a 10 out of 10. I just fucking loved this show. I don't think any anime in the next 10 or even 20 years is going to be this ballsy about exploring relationships between characters, especially unorthodox relationships like polyamory and just like straight out sexual lesbian relationships between two consenting girls.
Yeah, see, I only watched half this show, about 6 episodes worth, and I didn't finish it, but from what I've seen, and I know what it does and all the new stuff, and just like I said, just everything it does, I think your score it's acceptable.
Yeah.
I would like to see more shows, even if I don't care for dramas, just shows doing more stuff like this, actually being real and not just goofy anime shyness stuff between relationships.
Like,
it's just old and overplayed at this point.
Not waiting like 11 episodes for like them to hold hands or something, but like
it was 12 episodes in Fuuka.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm lowering my score.
You feel too generous about your big 4?
Oh, God. Yeah, I think 10 out of 10 is on the high end for Scum's Wish, but like that show like really kind of spoke to me.
Yeah, but there's nothing to compare it to, so I think
it's a unique show. Like we won't see that again for a while, and it won't be as well written if we do see it for a while. So, yeah. Did we cover interviews with Monster Girls yet? Is that the last one?
I think, is that the last one?
I think so.
Did you do March Comes In Like a Lion?
Yeah, I did. Other shows we skipped or dropped along the way. Seiren, I never finished that. I would have had that at like a 3 out of 10. Urara Meirucho, I would have had that at a lowly out of 10. I don't know, maybe like a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. I don't know.
Oh, man.
But yeah, interviews with Monster Girls, I'm at a 6 out of 10 out of that. I had the same kind of like reservations as I did with Kobayashi. The Kobayashi was definitely worse about that stuff. You know what? Never mind. I'm pumping this up at a 7. Interviews with Monster Girls deserves a little more because in the end, it was much more mature show than I figured it would be from the beginning. And I just liked all the characters. I liked the message of several of the episodes, like the last one. And yeah, it's a solid show.
Yeah, just going off everything you said, I agree with. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it was more deserving of a 7, but I gave Kobayashi a 7, and I gave Gabriel Dropout a 6. And I believe each one's better than the other, basically, in that order.
Exactly, yeah. That's where I'm at, too, basically, yeah. So, yeah, it was a decent season. I mean, like, even giving shows like 5 out of 10s, 6 out of 10s, that's, like, great. Because, like, a lot of anime seasons don't have that many, like, average shows. Or what I consider to be average, anyway.
Yeah, and the spring season, I'm sorry. The winter season was looking so bleak at first. I thought it was going to be horrible.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of like any of these shows I just scored before the winter season, so it was part of my problem.
Yeah, Scum's Wish for me was a huge
surprise.
What's up,
Konosuba? And I knew I was going to get
Konosuba.
Anyway,
Konosuba, I had Shouwa Genroku. I knew that I was going to enjoy that, but yeah, Interviews with Monster Girls is a nice surprise. It's like a well done show. Gabriel Dropout, I expected to hate. Like I just expected to completely hate it, like Komodo Amaro-chan. And by the way, it was just announced today we're getting a second season of Himoto Umaru-chan.
Oh man, I read that manga. It's
So more of that garbage coming back. But I'm sure people will love. But I thought Gabriel Dropout was just going to be like a repeat of that, but it turned out to be quite a bit more.
No, it's its own thing, and like I said, I thought it was funny, which is why I gave it a score just above average. So.
And also from reading the Kobayashi Maid Dragon manga up to a certain point before the season started, like I thought I was going to completely hate that show, but KyoAni really toned down the fan service from the manga for the show.
Yeah, you even brought up the one part where they're sitting under the waterfall and it's just like total pedo garbage.
Yep,
and they cleaned that up so nicely.
Yeah, they cleaned a lot up. They didn't clean everything up, so I was upset about that, but they cleaned up so much of it that you have many episodes of just Kana being just a cute character, and I like that.
Now that I think about it and we've seen all these shows, there's a bunch of shows in here where they could have gone crazy fan servicey, but they actually dialed it back.
Yeah, especially Interviews with Monster Girl is a good example. Yeah.
That even something like Saga of Tanya the Evil,
yeah, her
lieutenant looks like she was made to be the fan service of the show, but they didn't do that, not in the least. I don't even remember a scene where they made her boobs bounce or something.
Yeah,
and they totally could have.
The closest thing to fan service is when they dressed Tanya up in a cute gothic maid outfit for a photo shoot.
That was hilarious because she hated it,
and she looked like her character.
She had that twist look on her face.
Yeah, she also looked a little bit like her character Victorique from Gosek when they dressed her up like that. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I just hope this is a trend I see ongoing where they just don't trash a show with useless fan service and try to be halfway serious and fun with it.
Let me tell you, Leo, it's not a fucking trend because I've been watching spring season.
Yeah, you've been watching first episodes, and I am already regretting my long list of anime I've made.
There's a couple good ones out there. But anyway, we digress. We finished.
All right, we ready to close this out?
We finished our first season of anime, Leo. Are you proud of us?
I am very proud of us. I think I'm happy with what we did. I don't have any regrets except for shortening the episodes, but we're working
we're working on that. So why don't you send us out?
All right, thanks for listening. Remember to follow and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos, and follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well. Episode 7 will be coming within the next week or so, and we'll have our first impressions of the huge spring 2017 shows. So see you then.